I'm really glad to see you today. Are you having a good summer? I hope you're getting to have a lot of time playing outside in your backyard, maybe with your brothers and sisters. Eat some popsicles or some ice cream, or maybe you get to grill outside and have hot dogs or hamburgers, or maybe some grilled vegetables. Not all of us eat meat. Well, I hope you're having a really good summer, and I wish that we could be with each other for summer reading in person, but I'm glad that we can at least have this. So, sooner or later we'll get back together, but for now, let's have a story time. Are you ready? Clap your hands if you love stories. Clap your hands, I know you do. I'm so glad that we could be together. Glad to share a story time with you. This is a story that comes from a country that's all the way on the other side of the Atlantic Ocean from us, a country called Denmark. And it's the story of the emperor's new clothes. You see, a long time ago, there was an emperor, that's like a king, who lived in a country far away. And this emperor's favorite thing to do was to go out among his people, riding in his carriage, going to the theater, anywhere he could be seen, so that he could show off his fine royal clothing. He was very proud of the clothes that he had, and he spent more time in his closet than he did working. But one day, two men came into town, strangers that no one had seen before. And these men were swindlers. That's a word that means someone who cheats other people. But they told everyone that they were tailors. They said that where they came from, they were the finest tailors in their whole country. And they were able to make the most special, the most magical cloth. They said that the cloth would only be visible to the very most clever, most honest people, and that anyone who was foolish or dishonest would not even be able to see the cloth that they made. Well, word reached the emperor of this, and he thought it would be a very fine thing indeed to have clothing made out of this fabric, because then he could tell who on his staff was dishonest and who on his staff was too foolish for him to have working for him. And so he hired the two swindlers to make him some clothing. And he gave them a lot of money to get started. Well, they went into a room and they set up their looms to begin working, and they asked for the finest silk thread and finest gold that they could use to make the fabric. And the king gave them piles and piles of silk and gold, which the swindlers secreted away in bags and then began to work. They wove their needles through the air on empty looms. There was nothing there. They were pretending to sew and to stitch and to weave. Now the emperor was on the other side of his palace, and eventually he thought, it would be nice to see how this is coming along. I will send my steward to go have a peek at the fabric and see how it looks. And so the honest old steward went into the room, and he saw the two swindlers working on what looked like thin air with empty looms, sewing and humming and working. And he thought, I know that I'm not dishonest, but if I tell the emperor that I can't see the fabric, he'll think that I am, or he'll think that I'm too foolish. And so when he went back to the emperor, he said, oh, it's the most lovely thing you ever saw. The colors, the patterns. I was stunned. And the emperor was very pleased to hear this. And so when the swindlers asked for even more gold and more silk, he was more than happy to give it to them. And over time, he sent more and more of his officials to go look at the fabric. The head of his knights came back talking about how he wished that he could have such clothing made for him. The lady in waiting said that she almost fainted at the sight of the beautiful fabric, because none of them wanted to admit that they could not see anything on the weaver's looms. And eventually the time came when the tailors called the king to come look at the clothing himself. And when he went into the room, they held up their hands in the air and said, look, your majesty, here is your coat. And the emperor didn't know what to say. He thought, everyone on my staff talked about how beautiful this is. Everyone on my staff could see this. Am I to tell them that I am more foolish than them? And so he swallowed and said, it's lovely. I've never seen its like. And the tailors beamed and said, and here are your pants. Of course, holding up nothing at all again. And the emperor exclaimed just as loudly, "Magnificent! I am so satisfied." And the tailor said, "Well, Your Majesty, would you like to show your clothing to the kingdom?" And he said, "Certainly." And they said, "Let us dress you. Go ahead and remove your clothing and we will put the new clothing on you." Of course, there was nothing he could do at that point, so he took off his own royal clothing and they hung the nothing around him. And then he strode out of the room and to the front of his castle, and he said, "Make ready my royal horse." All of his staff members were looking at him, wondering if they should say that it looked like he was wearing nothing at all, but no one wanted to admit that they could not see the magical fabric. And so the king mounted upon his horse, and his staff mounted their horses behind him, and they rode out into the kingdom. And all the people lined the streets, and they had heard about the fabric too, remember? And so they didn't want to admit that they were too foolish to see the magical cloth. And so they called out, "Glorious, Your Majesty, it's lovely. Oh, look, I love it. I love it so much." Until after he'd been riding a while, a little boy who stood beside the road said, "But he's not wearing anything." The people around him giggled a little nervously, and then they laughed a little louder, and they said, "Did you hear? The child said he doesn't have anything on. The emperor has nothing on. Did you see? The emperor has no clothes." And they all were laughing and laughing, and the emperor realized that they were right. It was not a matter of magical fabric. He had been fooled. But there was nothing he could do but finish the ride. And when he had finally returned to his castle, he found that the swindlers, all of the gold, all of the silk, and all the money he had paid them for his clothing were long gone. So it was really hot this week, wasn't it? Did any of you get to go swimming? Maybe you've got a little pool in your backyard that you could splash in. I don't, but if you did, I've got a finger play that I think you'll like. So get ready to swim. Can you show me how? Swimming in the water, cool and bright. I kick my feet, you can kick your real feet if you like, with all my might. When I'm tired, I like to float. I pretend that I'm a boat. I like to hold my breath and dive. I swim under the water and count to 5. Wow! Let's do that one more time. Swimming in the water, cool and bright, I kick my feet with all my might. And when I'm tired, I like to float. I like to pretend that I'm a boat. I like to hold my breath and dive. I swim under the water and count to 5. Wow! This is the story of the Little Red Hen. This little red hen lived in a barnyard, and she spent almost all of her time pecking around in the dirt. You see, this hen had a lot of babies that she had to take care of, and so she was very busy all day long, pecking, looking for bugs and worms and anything she could to feed both herself and her whole big family. There were some other animals that lived in the farmyard. There was the pig, who spent almost all of his time lying around in the mud, not really caring much at all about anything going on around him. There was the white cat, who spent almost all of his time napping in the warm sun outside the barn door. In fact, he was so busy napping that he didn't even bother to chase after the fat rat, who spent almost all of his time admiring how handsome and sleek he looked in the puddles and ponds around the barnyard. So, one day, Mrs. Red Hen was pecking along, looking for anything she could feed her babies, when suddenly she found something in the dirt that was not a bug, and it was not a worm. It was a seed, and she recognized it as a wheat seed, something you could plant in the ground and grow wheat. Now, even though she knew what to do with it, she didn't really have the time to do it. You see, she was busy trying to take care of her babies. She certainly didn't have time to be the farmer as well. But she knew that if it was planted, it could grow up to be something really, really useful. And so she thought of the pig, who didn't seem to have much of anything to do, or the cat, or the rat, any of whom seemed to have a lot of free time. And she said to them, "Who will plant this wheat seed?" And the pig said, "Not I." And the cat said, "Meow, not I." And the rat said, "Squeak, not I." And so, with nothing else to do, the little red hen said, "I suppose I will." And so she planted the seed and watered it, and then she went on about her business, pecking, looking for food for her babies. And after a while, some time passed. The seed began to grow, and all the while, the red hen stayed busy, and the pig kept rolling in the mud, and the cat kept napping, and the rat kept admiring himself, until one day, the hen looked and saw that the wheat was fully grown and ready to be picked. She didn't really have the time to do that. The babies were just getting to that age where they needed even more food than they'd been eating before, and they went cheep, cheep, cheep all the time. And so she threw up her hands and said, "Who will cut this wheat?" And the pig yawned and said, "Not I." The cat managed to wake himself from his nap to say, "Not I." And the rat looked over his shoulder at the hen and said, "Not I." Well, the hen looked back and forth between her babies, who were cheeping impatiently, and the wheat. And she said, "Then I will." And so, as her babies cheeped, she cut the wheat and then went to find some food for the babies. But of course, wheat cut on the ground doesn't really serve any purpose. So she said, "Who will take this wheat to the mill so that it can be ground into flour?" Because that's what you do with wheat seeds. And she didn't really have the time to be going and doing it herself, but the pig, who might have had the time, simply grinned and said, "Not I." And the cat yawned and said, "Not I." And the rat giggled and said, "Not I." And so the little red hen said, "I suppose I will then." And so, gathering up the wheat in her beak, she made her way to the mill, her little babies following behind her in a little parade. And when she took it there, the miller ground the wheat up into flour. Now, the thing to do with flour, the red hen knew, is to turn it into bread. And she wasn't in the habit of making bread. It takes a lot of time to make bread, and anyone can do it, she supposed, but she didn't want to do it. She had other things she needed to be tending to. And so she called out once again to the other animals in the barnyard, "Who will turn this flour into bread? Who will bake the bread?" And the pig looked mildly interested, but said, "Not I." And the cat stretched and said, "Not I." The rat barely turned around from his own reflection in the nearest puddle and said, "Not I." The hen was very frustrated, but she knew that there was nothing for it but to go on, and she said, "Then I will." And so, with the help of her babies, she took the flour and she mixed in the other ingredients, and she kneaded the dough out and kneaded it and kneaded it and kneaded it, put it in the pan and baked it. And as the bread was baking, the most delicious smells wafted all over the barnyard. And the pig smelled the bread and said, And the cat said, "What is that delicious smell?" And the rat said, "I don't know, but I will be having some." And as the red hen took the bread out of the oven, she turned and looked at her babies and said, "Now, who will help me eat this bread?" And the pig said, "I will." And the cat said, "I will." And the rat said, "I will." And the red hen said, "No, we will." And she and her babies ate every single bite. All right, I feel like doing one that we all know. So how about we sing "If You're Happy and You Know It"? You ready? You know this one. But everyone stand up because you're gonna need to move, right? All right, you ready? If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, flap your elbows. If you're happy and you know it, flap your elbows. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, flap your elbows. If you're happy and you know it, jump up and down. If you're happy and you know it, jump up and down. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, jump up and down. If you're happy and you know it, spin around. If you're happy and you know it, spin around. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, spin around. If you're happy and you know it, make a face. If you're happy and you know it, make a face. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, make a face. If you're happy and you know it, make a loud noise. Roar! If you're happy and you know it, make a loud noise. Roar! If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, make a loud noise. Roar! If you're happy and you know it, shake your hair. If you're happy and you know it, shake your hair. If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, shake your hair. If you're happy and you know it, say hooray, hooray! If you're happy and you know it, say hooray, hooray! If you're happy and you know it, then your face will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, say hooray, hooray! Good job, guys. Well, I hope you had a good time today. I hope you liked the stories and our song and our finger play. I'm really glad that you got to watch this with me today. I miss you guys so much. I hope that you're taking advantage of everything else that the library has going on. You know, we've got things like drawing prompts that post every Monday. We've got crafts going on almost every Saturday that you can watch a video. Some of them are even special that you can drop by the library and pick up some things so that you can make the same thing at home that we demonstrate on the videos. And on Saturdays, we also post a very funny picture where someone is playing hide and seek in the library and you have to find them. Those are just a couple of the things that we have going on that we hope that you enjoy. Anyway, I will see you next week. And in the meantime, let's get a great big old stretch. Oh, reach for the ceiling and touch the floor. Stand up again. Let's do some more. Touch your head and now your knees up to your shoulders like this, you see. Reach for the ceiling and touch the floor. That's all there is. There isn't any more. Bye, guys.